What the hell does it mean to be a high performer? Good question. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about how you can become a high performing individual. If you don't know who I am already, my name is Michael Tabaradi, high performance coach and mentor, and I help self-starters and ambitious professional millennials increase their productivity, enhance their performance, realize their priorities, and live their life with purpose. Now, if this is the first time you come to my YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, all the links are in the description below. Now let's get into the video. Now, many traditional coaches are trained to become an executive coach, and then further down the line, they choose a niche where mine is high performance. Now, many of my clients will tell you that I help them become high performing individuals in an authentic, no BS, but very sort of perceptive way, should I say. So in this video, I thought it'd make sense to talk about what it means to be a high performer. Now let's get into the video. Now, quite simply, a high performing individual is somebody who produces to a high standard consistently. Okay, so there's obviously going to be outputs and outcomes that they produce. Outputs being tangibles, and outcomes are the expectations you aim to see as an individual. Okay, so let's say, for example, you're in a workplace and you're working in sales. Maybe you as a high performer have a higher rate of conversions or closing people when it comes to your role. So that's what a high performer is, somebody who is consistently achieving at a high standard. Now, the interesting point here is that what is defined as standard or the norm, and what is defined as high? And better yet, how do you measure this stuff? These are all interesting questions. Now, I think this is a really important distinction. Being a high performance individual doesn't say anything necessarily about the quality of that individual when it comes to their well-being. And so from this standpoint, I'm going to assume that the individual is a great emotionally intelligent person, in addition to somebody who actually produces great outputs and outcomes. So bear that in mind. But in future videos, we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. Now here, I'm going to break down 4 key things that I think makes a high performing individual. The first thing I'll say is you need to have the right level of audacious authenticity. What do I mean by this? Well, quite simply, number 1, you need to have the right level of brutal honesty, okay? Be truly honest to yourself, because if you're lying to yourself, how can you be efficient as a person? How can you be effective? How can you be impactful? There's gonna be all of these weird nuances in your body, in your soul, and in your being that prevents you from actually delivering great work. And so with that in mind, audacious authenticity is key, i.e. brutal honesty. What links in from that? You need to be sincere. You need to base your information on facts. You need to have the right level of integrity, but you also need to be courageous. And that courage comes from having the right level of purpose, okay? Now, I don't want to create too much pressure on you, but if you have the right sense of purpose, or if you understand what drives you as an individual, if you understand what you wake up to do, then my friends, you're going to be on fire, okay? That was a bit cheesy. But what I'm trying to say is that authenticity is key. And really audacious authenticity is having the bravery, the courage to be yourself, okay? That doesn't necessarily mean lazy, rude, or whatever it may be, but you're in tune with how you are and you're able to express and communicate that in a great way. So that's the first step. Having audacious authenticity will help towards your progression towards becoming a high performer, because people are attracted to people who are authentic. In the same token, sometimes people don't like people who are too authentic. But in the same instance, it's always going to be a good thing, because you're going to learn quicker, you're going to be a better problem solver, and you're going to be someone who can actually communicate with people effectively. So that's the first step. The second thing that you need to have is crystal clarity. What does this really mean? Well, it's in the words. You need to be very, very sure about what it is that you need to be doing, okay? Whether that's in your working life, your business life, your spiritual life, your romantic life, whatever it may be, you need to be clear about your decision-making process. This links in with the authenticity and values, but I'm going to sort of take it to another notch. You need to have a sense of purpose. a clear vision and set of aims and goals that you're working towards, because from there you can get metrics that you measure yourself against in order for you to actually do what you need to do. That's how we define that level of high performance, because if you don't have metrics, then what are you measuring yourself against? What are you actually doing? And you only have metrics when you have a goal or a standard to work against. In addition to that, you need to have the right system, okay, or set of routines that enable you to be effective. And what I'd say to this is that you have to have the right level of systems thinking. What does that mean? Well, system thinking is incorporated based on these different factors and qualities. So each system has an environment that it sits within, okay, where all this stuff happens. And within this environment, you have inputs, okay, things that you put into the environment. The second bit you have is the process. So how things work, how things are connected, how things are intercalated. And then the third thing is you have outputs, okay, what you actually produce. So you need to put in stuff, whether that's effort, muscle, knowledge, skills, wherever it may be, and then process that stuff, okay, over time in order to get those tangible outputs which produce outcomes over time. Now, the outputs that you get allows you to get information that creates a feedback loop. And so that's what I'm talking about when it comes to systems thinking. So when it comes to crystal clarity, it's about making sure that you're absolutely clear about what it is that you need to be doing day to day, and you have the right structures and things in place to enable you to do that. That also includes planning, strategy, and accountability systems like people to help you along the way. And this is where we start talking about coaches and mentors and all this kind of stuff. So it's having things that enable you and propel you to move towards that northern star. And so this is how you start to ignite yourself with drive. If you're audaciously authentic and you have that crystal clarity, that alone will make you a high performer. Before I continue, I'd love to know your thoughts on what it takes for you to become a high performer. What qualities do you think are required? Leave your comments below. Now let's get back into the video. The third thing I'll say is having considered communication. What this really means is that you have a way with words. You know what to say and how to say it to individuals. And that requires you to understand the human spirit, human psychology, the human dynamic. Because the more you understand people, the better you are at communicating. The better you are at understanding yourself. And this is why audacious authenticity is at the heart of all of this stuff. It's almost like a pyramid. And so considered communication is knowing what to say and how to say it. This is having the right level of emotional intelligence. This also means being good at asking great questions, effective and active listening, and also, or should I say deep and active listening? I think that's a bit more accurate, and effective and powerful questions, because what that does, it opens an individual up. What I'd also say about this is you have to be an expert in some degree. What do I mean by this? If you are an expert, by nature or by virtue of that very word, you are influential. And so become an expert in something, develop your knowledge, develop your understanding, and develop your skills in a specific class or topic or area, and then you'll be able to attract people. Being influential is key in this. And so this is where the human dynamic comes into play. This is where your expertise comes into play. This is where maybe some Machiavellian sort of tactics come into play, depending on who you are. The point I'm making is being an influential human being comes from being a valuable human being. And again, I'll talk about this in future videos. So considered communication is the third thing in order for you to be a true high-performing individual. What I'd also add to that is this specific quote: respect should be in the empty place where love should be. What that really means, and that's by Leo Tolstoy, by the way, what that really means is that you should also be respectful. Yes, there's one thing being audaciously authentic, but there's another thing respecting your other human beings. So always maintain that level of respect. And even if people don't like you, as long as they respect you, that's enough, okay? And that is proved through that crystal clarity and those outputs that you deliver. This is why it's important to make sure that you deliver as an individual, because when it comes down to it, then your work acts as evidence. Of course, those are not the only things, but in this context, we're talking about performance, okay? Now, performance can be in many different areas of your life, but again, at least you can understand what I mean in terms of outputs. The final thing I'll say is to have voracious vitality. You have to be energized. You have to be somebody who enjoys waking up in the morning. You have to be somebody who doesn't feel their age but feels younger, okay? I think it was Will Smith who did an age test or something like that. They looked at his biochemical markers and he was pretty much almost half his age. His body was of a 30-year-old, okay? Now his wife Jada wasn't too happy because, yeah, she was pretty much her age. Okay, it's kind of peak out here, but what I'm saying to you is that that doesn't happen by accident, okay? Of course, he is naturally I say naturally, but he's a very energetic and charismatic individual. He loves the zest of life. You have to be that person. And in order to help you to become that person, you need to understand rest, okay? If you're a high performer, you're usually someone who likes to work and work and work and grind and write and just do what they need to do. I understand that because I'm definitely on that flex and wave, but in the same instance, your body is a temple. Your body can only take so much. So with that in mind, rest is key. Having time blocking activities in order for you to be effective, and this is going to be really important. So time management, another thing, again, more linked to crystal clarity, but something I needed to express. Another thing you need to think about, these are obvious stuff. Eating well, okay? Not kind of all right, but well enough for you to actually preserve your body in such a way where you can do more, have more, and be more. Also, making sure that you're drinking well. Okay, I'm not talking about alcohol, I'm talking about water. Okay, stay away from the alcohol if you can. Okay, obviously one or two here and there depending on your cultural lifestyle, but for me, I prefer to stay away. Only on great occasions, obviously. But you know, what I'm saying to you is that take health seriously. Take it seriously. Also embed yourself in mindful practices, because when you do that, you are conditioning your body so that it can be more at peace, more present. And when you're present, when you understand that there is only one eternal moment, you have more power, you have more control, you have more in your gift. Because the present is a gift. Simple as that. So voracious vitality is the fourth step. And there we have it. My 4 pillars for high performance in order for you to achieve at a high quality and standard. Now, if you want to become a high performance individual, or if you want to raise your game, raise your level and go beyond your vision, then make sure to book a breakthrough session so we can discuss those very topics in order for you to actually be the person you're called to be. Now, high performance is great and everything, but I feel like it's missing some elements. And so in the next video, I'm going to be talking about what it means to be a high potential individual, because many of us probably sit in that category. If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button. And if you want to check the next video, subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.